All right, let's talk about something that, well, a lot of us have probably felt, but maybe haven't put into words. We're going to dive into one of the biggest, quietest questions inside a long term relationship. It's a tension that can build silently over years, and it all comes down to one simple action. Yeah, who's supposed to make the first move? Is it always on one person? Is there a designated initiator? And what happens when you're just not on the same page? If any of this sounds familiar, trust me, you are in very, very good company. In fact, this is one of the biggest unspoken struggles for couples. It's not a sign that your relationship is failing or that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that you're human and you're in a real long-term relationship where life and stress and biology all get thrown into the mix. So, to really get our heads around this, we have to flip the script a little. Let's stop thinking of this desire gap as some kind of bug in your relationship software. What if it's actually a feature, a totally normal, built-in part of how long-term partnerships work? Okay, so there's a technical name for this, of course. It's called sexual desire discrepancy, or SDD. It's really just a fancy way of saying what we all know. Sometimes one of you's in the mood and the other one, well, just isn't. Simple as that. And this right here is so important to hear. Study after study confirms that this isn't just common, it's pretty much inevitable. No one's desire stays at a constant level forever, so experiencing a mismatch isn't a red flag. It's a normal dynamic, not a sign that your connection is broken. So what does this actually look like in day-to-day life? Well, it might be that classic frequency mismatch, right? Or it could show up as challenges around who starts things. Maybe one person feels like they're always the one asking, while the other starts to feel pressured. And if you don't talk about it, that's when you can get that emotional distance, maybe even a little bit of resentment creeping. So, if we accept that this gap is going to happen, why does it happen? Well, to figure that out, we've got to bust a huge myth about how desire even works in the first place. See, the thing is, for years we've basically been sold one idea of what desire is supposed to look like. But that's only half the story. A lot of this tension comes from two people running on completely different operating systems, and they don't even know it. All right, this slide is huge. On one side, you have spontaneous desire. Think of it like a lightning bolt. It just zaps you out of nowhere. It's often hormonal, and this is key. The feeling of desire comes before you feel physically turned on. Now, on the other side, you've got responsive desire. This is the warming ember. It doesn't just show up, it builds. It responds to something, a touch, an emotional connection. And for this type, physical arousal can actually come before or at the same time as the feeling of desire. This is a game changer to understand. And that just perfectly sets up this next point. For that warming ember to even start glowing, the conditions have to be right. And look at this. Research from the legendary Gottman Institute found that emotional intimacy, just that feeling of closeness, is one of the absolute strongest predictors of sexual satisfaction. It's not fluff, it's the foundation. Okay, so we get the why now. We have these two different types of desire at play. So what do we actually do about it? How do we bridge that gap? Let's get into what the research says really truly works. This is so fascinating. A study looked at how couples actually deal with this desire mismatch, and they found it basically falls into 5 buckets. You've got disengagement, which is the do nothing and hope it fixes itself strategy. Then communication, actually talking about it. There's activity alone, activity with a partner, and finally, have sex anyway. Okay, so those are the common strategies. But here's the kicker. How they affect your relationship's health? Well, it's like night and day. And boom, this chart tells the whole story. The same study found a massive link between the strategy a couple used and how happy they were. When couples chose disengagement, just doing nothing, their satisfaction levels were way down in the basement. But when they chose communication, through the roof. It literally could not be clearer. Avoiding the conversation is toxic. So let's just nail this down. The big takeaway is that active, partnered strategies are consistently linked to higher satisfaction. Communication isn't just one option among many, it is the key to better relationship and sexual satisfaction. In doing nothing, it is the most damaging choice you can make. And that brings us right back to where we started. We kicked this whole thing off by asking, who should be the one to start things? But all of this evidence points to a completely different and way more useful question. It turns out, if you're thinking about this in terms of whose job it is to initiate, you're looking at it all wrong. It's not a burden for one person to carry. The real goal, the much better question, is this. How do we, together, Create a space where starting things feels easy and welcome for both of us. See that shift? It moves it from a task to an environment, from a transaction to a team effort. So how do you build that environment? Well, here are 4 practical steps. First, normalize the gap. Just say it out loud to each other, acknowledge it's a thing that will happen. Second, understand your styles. Have that conversation about lightning bolts versus warming embers. It is a game changer. Third, prioritize non-sexual intimacy. Cuddling, paying compliments, going on dates, that's the kindling for the ember. And fourth, communicate to plan. Take the pressure off. Maybe that means scheduling date nights or just talking about what makes you feel close and connected. And this really just sums it all up, doesn't it? A great sex life, especially years or decades into a relationship, doesn't just magically happen. It isn't an accident. It's a practice. It's something you have to intentionally build and take care of together.